First, thank you all very much for coming out tonight in this rain and the weather. It's good to see you all here, all Republicans. I'm in my 14th year as a Texas state representative. A lot of people are doubting Mitt Romney's credentials as a conservative. I'm going to give you my credentials as a conservative. I've been endorsed by every single conservative rating organization in the state of Texas. Every single one of them. I have an A+ rating with the NRA and the Texas State Rifle Association for 14 years. I've got a 100% rating with Texas Right to Life and the Texas Alliance for Life for 14 years. I've got the highest business voting score in the entire legislature with the Texas Association of Business. I've been endorsed, not officially yet, by the Texas Realtors Association. They're coming out with their endorsement any day now, but I've been called. Also, the Young Conservatives of Texas added me to the historic honor roll of conservatives in Texas. The Texas Conservative Digest listed me as one of 15 conservative legislators of the year 2011. Texas Eagle Forum listed me as one of the top 10% of conservatives in the Texas legislature. I serve in the community. I am currently serving on the Board of Trustees of Texas College. I've been on the board of Texas College for 8 years. I'm a board member of the Meals on Wheels Ministry. I'm a board member of the East Texas Council Boy Scouts of America. I'm a board member of the Bethesda Clinic. And I'm an emeritus board member of the Association for Retarded Citizens of Smith County. Thank you very much.
And you have the floor for 2 minutes. 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
I just want to begin by thanking Representative Berman for his many years of service to our country, to our state. Very pleased to see you doing well here today. My wife and I have had you in our prayers and we will continue to do so.
Thank you very much.
I'm a God-fearing conservative who believes in individual liberty, reducing the size and scope of bureaucracy, and in focusing on the constitutional role of government. And I'm a Texan through and through. I was born and raised in Texas. I grew up out in the country. My brothers and I experienced a lot of freedom. Barbed wire fences were just something to climb over and to keep the cows in, not just to keep us out. We learned to handle guns at an early age. We preferred 22 shells over toys at Christmas. We learned to work before we ever learned to work for money. The times were hard. My first job was hoeing weeds in a peanut field when I was 13 years old. The oil crash had left my father without a job. But he chose to keep us in that small town rather than to move us to a bigger city. And I'm thankful that he did that. We didn't have a lot of money, but we always had opportunity. My brothers and I took the values that we learned in church, in the classroom, on the football field, and we applied them to our lives. We always found jobs. One of those jobs led me to Tyler in 1999, where I met and later married my beautiful wife, Jason. Along the way, I developed a deep sense of service and passion for the freedoms that have been paid for in blood. I've had the privilege of serving in the Navy Reserves, where I've worked in places like the Sea of Japan and Western Afghanistan. The military taught me how to put mission before self and to take pride in your work. I am proud of my small real estate investments. I am proud to be a general practice attorney. I've seen everyday struggles in custody battles, property disputes, businesses with customers that won't pay, and people facing prison. I have stood next to people in a courtroom and in a combat zone who are struggling for freedom. And I will never take that struggle lightly. The first question we should ask before we pass a new law is, will people have more freedom or less freedom? Because the field of freedom is shrinking, not because of a point of a gun, but because of the point of the pen. Shrinking because of growing debt, wasteful spending, and regulations that reduce opportunity. I will push back. I will stand up for that nameless, faceless person who doesn't yet know he will face a new regulation, who isn't a member of some association in Austin making a special rule to keep out competition. I will stand up for that guy who runs his business out of the front seat of his pickup. If you want a full-time politician, I'm not your guy. Last weekend I threw tools in the back of my truck and crawled up with the act of my rental problem. And when the legislature is not in session, I will be out working, trying, failing, and trying again, just like all of you. My goal is not to have the endorsement of every big-name group out of Austin. My goal is to listen first and foremost to East Texans and to stand up for individual liberty. If you want a fresh conservative voice to speak for East Texans, I'm ready to serve.
Matt, since you have the floor, we're going to start with you. The first question that I'm going to ask: in the last budget session, significant cuts were made across all state departments. In your opinion, has the state budget been cut to the bone, or is there still spending that could be eliminated, and if so, what?
There are actually two areas of the budget that were not cut, including healthcare services and transportation. People talked about, well, we should have tapped the rainy day fund in order to, quote-unquote, balance the budget. The rainy day fund represents about 1 month of spending for the state of Texas. Just 1 month. That's how little cushion we actually have. So no, I don't think it was cut to the bone. I think there were some problems with the budget when it came to how it was balanced, primarily with the accounting gimmicks and tricks that were done. Basically what they did was they took money that was going to go into the foundation school program, and instead of paying that payment in August of next year, they're going to pay it in September, so it doesn't count. They're going to take money that's supposed to go to enrollment growth in Medicaid, and they're just not going to fund it. They're going to say, sorry folks, there's only 17 months of funding and not 24. So the day they get back to session in 2013, they've got serious problems to deal with, and we just hope the economy's better and our legislators will be willing to make some hard choices.
Very well. Leo, would you like me to re-ask the question?
No, I don't understand the question. Prior to going into session last year, we were told we were going to have a $5 billion shortfall. Just before we went into session, we were told we were going to have a $15 billion shortfall. And then when we actually started, we had a $25 billion shortfall. The Tea Parties and all my constituents told me that we want to cut the budget, cut spending, and balance the budget without a tax increase and cut the size of government. We did exactly that. We cut spending, we balanced the budget, no tax increases at all, and we did exactly what our constituents asked us to do. As a result of what we did last session, we recently got a letter from the comptroller. Comptroller told us as a result of what we did last session that we're going to go into next session with a $1.6 billion surplus. And I love to hear that word, surplus. It doesn't mean you spend it. We capped our rainy day fund at $6 billion. So we have $6 billion in the rainy day fund right now to spend. We did a good job last session. We led the way. We're the only state in the union. There were 2 other states, I'm sorry. There were 3 states in the union that did not raise taxes. Texas was one of them, and Texas finances are in the best shape of any state in the United States right now. I'm very proud of that. I also signed a pledge saying that I will not raise taxes at any time.
Matt, follow up.
With all due respect, Representative Berman, one of your colleagues to our west just a few days ago called the budget smoke and mirrors. Mara Cronin. When you look at what they did, and they said, we're going to fund Medicaid for 17 months and not 24. That's kind of like me saying, you know, I've got enough money for the mortgage this year, honey, but we don't have that much money. Well, I'm just not going to pay it the last 3 months, and the mortgage company won't care. So the day they get back, you have to deal with the problems that are left over from the previous session. Not only that, you took money out of education and you just pushed it off to the next cycle without any accountability and without any transparency in that process. So if you're going to claim that you balance the budget, then we have to put an asterisk on that statement and say, we used accounting gimmicks and tricks. And that's smoke and mirrors, and I'm using the word from one of your Republican colleagues.
Leo?
There's 181 members of the legislature, and they'll all call the budget whatever they want to call it. We balanced the budget. There were no tax increases whatsoever. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you very much, Leo. The next question will come to you first. Since 2003, Texas has passed significant tort reform. During the brief candidacy of Governor Perry for president, he mentioned that quite a bit. Do you believe, A, Leo, that these reforms were necessary, and do you believe that they went far enough, or is additional reform necessary? This is a question that came from the audience.
In the valley, there was not a single OB/GYN doctor anywhere in the valley. Because any time an OB/GYN delivered a baby, it was sued immediately. We had to do something about that. I was one of the floor leaders on tort reform. There were 800 amendments to that bill by Democrats who were trying to kill it. We kept net language and damages. We allowed true damages, true financial damages. But we have the best tort reform bill in the United States right now. And I was one of the floor leaders on tort reform. Last session we passed a bill that said loser pays. This is similar to what they do in England. If you file a frivolous lawsuit and you lose, you're going to pay for everything. Yes, we need more tort reform. Trial lawyers don't think that.
Matt?
We've made great progress on this front. My youngest brother is graduating from medical school, just signed a contract to go be a doctor in a small town where they're going to deliver babies. And I doubt that that would be possible had we not had meaningful tort reform. We've done some very practical things like make it a lot easier for a judge to dismiss a case at the very beginning. There was something very obscure to the public called a special exceptions practice that attorneys would have to go through trying to get a bad case thrown out. The Supreme Court's going to give us some rules on how to deal with that. So we've made a lot of progress, and I'd be happy to defend the progress that we've made on that front, should I get elected.
Matt, sorry, Leo, a follow-up from you on that?
No, I have no follow-up. I have a question for my opponent. That comes later.
That comes later. At least you remember the format. Matt, this question will come to you first. To what extent does the state of Texas need to reduce the regulatory burden on business, and can you cite examples of what you would do in this area?
It takes over 1,000 hours to be licensed by the state of Texas to run the #2 clippers through my hair. It only takes 300 hours to get accredited to be a firefighter through the Tyler Junior College Fire Academy. There are a lot of areas in state government where we need to cut regulations that reduce opportunity. It happens all the time. What we don't need to do is create new state agencies that will put a bureaucratic layer of regulation over entire industries in our state, which many Republicans have been willing to do. There's a lot of things that need to be cut. The Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation has been one of the fastest growing agencies in Austin over the last several years. You know, when you think about that guy who's running his business out of his pickup, he doesn't have a secretary, he's not going to meetings, he's not getting a newsletter every month, he's not keeping up with all this stuff. Yet he's wondering if an inspector's going to show up one day and perhaps arrest him. No kidding, there are folks that want to be able to arrest you for doing some of this stuff. The legislature recently made it illegal for anybody but only a certain few to say that you're a certified interior designer. I'm sorry. That's going too far. That's not the kind of regulation we need in Texas.
Leo?
Well, based on your philosophy, then, let's do away with the code that deals with lawyers. Let everybody be a lawyer. We don't have to define law and say you got to go to law school for 4 years and pass certain tests. Anybody should be a lawyer then. The people who are asking for regulations are those who don't want another group of individuals to use their title. For example, an architect who wants to become an interior designer. Interior designers don't want architects to call themselves interior designers because they have different training, and vice versa. So people, doctors for example, a foot doctor, a podiatrist wants to go up to the ankle now. Well, you can't do that. And we stop those encroachments because as soon as that happens, the orthopedic surgeons come to us and say, tighten the regulation and keep them from coming up to the ankle. I can name many, many, many more things like that.
Matt, follow up?
More freedom or less freedom? Do you want bureaucrats in Austin handing out more permission slips? You know, government shouldn't exist to try to protect you from every bad thing that can happen. You know, mess up a woman's hair one time and see how much regulation you need on it. You know, every day you go and get your car worked on, and did you know that the mechanic who fixed brakes on a 3,500-pound vehicle that's going to propel you maybe 80 miles an hour down the road does not have a license? Wow. The freedom we have in Texas, if you're a mechanic. But if you're a group that's been able to lobby for interior designers, well, then you got to go to Austin to keep competition. More freedom in my book.
Leo?
I question the figure that was thrown out before 1,000 hours to get a barber's license or a cosmetology license. 5 years ago, there was a problem with these people. I brought the executive director, the top man himself, of the Bureau of Licensing and Regulation to Tyler. And we got that all straightened out. The inspection time was dramatically cut. The fines were dramatically cut. My office answers every piece of mail, email, and we work directly with my constituents. That's the favorite part of my job, trying to help my constituents. And I think you're going to find that our office probably is the best in the state of Texas. One major reason, I'm a full-time representative. I don't have a business to look after. I'm in the office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm there as long as it takes.
All right, Leo, thank you. That's time on that. This question comes to you first, Leo. Concerning water rights, and a very important issue, what can you do, what will you do to protect Lakes Tyler and Palestine from use by metro areas, and what about senior water rights downstream? And this question from the audience.
We've got to redefine senior water rights and make it absolutely certain when senior water rights can be imposed on an area like Tyler. Recently it was imposed, but we got it stopped. We got it stopped through the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality so that our water is not going downstream. We don't want that to happen anymore. Also, with the remainder of the East Texas delegation, we protected all of our lakes and all of our water from going to Dallas, Houston, or San Antonio. They'd love to have our water. They don't want to pay for it. They'd also like to have acreage so they can build new lakes out here. Just take it away through eminent domain. We stopped that. You know, if something passes in the legislature, you got to look and see who voted for it and who voted against it.
Matt?
I did just that. House Bill 2694, which passed last session, gave the executive director of TCEQ the powers he used to send the letter to Tyler a few months ago to shut off where our water was. You voted in favor of that bill. I read the bill. It was unclear to me how the city of Tyler would have any pre-notice of when that letter was going to come out, no administrative hearing prior to it. It gave very expansive direct authority to one man, the executive director, by simply sending a letter from Austin to Tyler. He could do it. That power didn't exist before. The legislature gave that power last session. You voted for that bill. I would have opposed that bill because we did not allow the city of Tyler to have a seat at the table before that decision was made.
Leo.
The major portion of that bill gave the executive director of TCEQ the right to set an interim rate for people who are under private water companies who are trying to raise your water or sewer rates. If they did that, they could raise it immediately without this bill. You would have to pay, and you'd probably never see that money again. If you're under the Tyler water system, they did great. Tyler is great. I have no problem with Tyler. But there are many private water companies that want to raise their rates, and now the executive director of the TCEQ can set an interim rate much lower than the water companies want. And that's a good thing for people who are buying their water from private water companies.
Matt, the final follow-up on this question.
When you read the emergency powers portion of that bill, that's where you gave the power to one man to come into Tyler, a simple letter, and say, stop what you're doing without hearing.
Very well. That will be the last on that question. Matt, the next question is first to you. Do you agree with Governor Perry when he said that the federal encroachment on the state's prerogatives under the 10th Amendment is a problem? And if you do agree with Governor Perry, what do you believe should be done?
Well, I absolutely agree with him. We need to remember that the 10th Amendment reserves those powers not given to the federal government, to the people and to the states respectively. The first thing you do, the first practical measure you take as the state of Texas is you stop chasing federal money. Because all this federal money that we're getting as a state of Texas, which is growing and growing and growing, every time you take that money, you give away local control. You let Washington say, we'll take our own money out of the treasury, which is borrowed, most of it, and when it comes back to us, it'll have all these strings attached. That's how the 10th Amendment is being eroded. It's being eroded in your transportation dollars. Go talk to the director of planning at TxDOT here in Tyler. He'll tell you when one of these communities comes in and wants to build a road, the stack of regulations they have to go through that is federal boggles their mind. Why do you think we have such a problem with health care? It's because every time we take $1 of federal money, we get all these rules. Why do you think we have so many problems with environmental regulations? It's because we're taking federal money. The federal government says you follow our rules. So the first thing you do is stop chasing federal money and start relying more on local resources and return control to the state of Texas.
Very well. Leo?
The administration in Washington has shredded the U.S. Constitution. There's no question about that. I was with Governor Perry when he reasserted the state's sovereignty under the 10th Amendment. I was standing right next to him when that happened. I filed a number of bills. I wanted to deal with the #1 man in Washington. I filed a bill which said that if you want to get on a Texas ballot, you've got to show your birth certificate to the Texas Secretary of State before you can get on our ballot. Several other states have picked that up, Georgia, Alabama, and it didn't pass in Texas. We just didn't have the votes to pass it. But the 10th Amendment is probably the most important amendment in the Bill of Rights, and we have got to observe 10th Amendment rights and tell the federal government that we are not going to do what they're asking us to do.
And to follow up on this question, anything further from you, Matt?
I think it boils down to good lawmaking. And at some point, folks, we're going to have to do some things that are tough. We need to know that this is not going to be easy. When you've gotten so used to all that federal money, and the federal government is going broke, everybody knows that. And when that federal valve starts getting cranked back, the money does start decreasing in the amount. There's going to be some painful decisions here in Texas. And we need legislators who are going to be willing to make tough decisions in that respect in order to restore control to the state of Texas.
Very well, thank you. Next question comes first to you, Matt. If the law that has come to be called Obamacare remains on the books unchanged and is being litigated before the Supreme Court even as we speak, but if it is allowed to stay on the books, one of the things that will happen is that the burden on the state of Texas with respect to Medicaid will grow quite substantially. How do you believe the state of Texas should deal with this problem if it truly materializes as a result of the full implementation of the Patient Protection Act?
The latest estimate from the Director of Health and Human Services in Austin is that Texas will need an additional $10.5 billion over the next biennium to pay for the new burden that Obamacare is going to put on the state of Texas. What Obamacare is going to do is push a lot of people onto the Medicaid program. And so that's why we've asked the Obama administration to block grant the Medicaid program back to the state of Texas. That's why at some point we may have to even consider what it would be like if we opted out of Medicaid. You know, there are some estimates that if we simply gave people a subsidy to go and buy their own health insurance rather than put them in Medicaid, the state of Texas would save billions of dollars. But in order to do that, we're going to have to push back against the federal mandates at some point. I'm very concerned. We don't have a debt problem in this country so much as we have a health care problem. And until we get to a point where people are truly thinking about cost for routine health care services, we're going to have a real crisis on our hands.
Leo?
In summer of 2008, President Obama stood before the United States Congress in the joint session, and he said, among other things, that illegal aliens are not considered under the new health care bill. A North Carolina congressman yelled out, "Liar," and later he apologized. He didn't have to apologize. The president did lie. There are 2 million illegal aliens here in Texas. If Obamacare goes through, and I'm hoping it's going to be killed next month in the U.S. Supreme Court, but if Obamacare goes through, not sure where Matt got his number from, it would cost $29 billion to put every illegal alien in Texas on state Medicaid. We don't have it, and we're not going to do it.
Follow up, Matt.
Obamacare is unconstitutional. It needs to go away.
Hey, Leo?
Yes.
Any follow up to that? Probably.
No, that's a good
You probably agree with that. Show of hands, does anybody does not agree with that? Leo, the first question on this will come to you, and it is actually a good follow-up to what we just discussed. Texas is a border state with a very large undocumented immigrant population. What do you believe, this is a two-part question, what do you believe should be done about those immigrants that are already here? And what do you believe should be the state's policy regarding the border?
State's policy regarding the border is use whatever resources we have available to seal it. We don't have enough resources to seal it. But what we should do with the illegal aliens that are already here is stop the benefits. If you stop giving them free health care, free schools, and now they're on state food stamps, aid to dependent children, and other programs, if you stop giving them those benefits, you don't need buses to round them up and take them home. They'll go home themselves, and it'll save them. And I've tried. I file the bills every session. I file a dozen bills every session to do exactly that.
Matt?
We have to uphold the rule of law in the state of Texas. The Houston Police Department has a general order that they have given their police officers that says that they are prohibited from inquiring about the status, about the citizenship status of anyone that they stop. We need a sanctuary cities bill passed in the state of Texas. We need to start cracking down on the healthcare services they are providing. They're not just getting healthcare in the emergency rooms, they're getting it in everyday clinics. Their papers are not being checked. We have to stop giving new incentives to illegal immigrants who are here for them to come over. One thing that I would disagree on is I know Representative Berman voted to give in-state tuition to illegal immigrants. And I don't think that in this day and age that's something that we can do.
Leo, follow.
Yeah. The in-state tuition bill came up in the year 2001 when Pete Leahy was the Speaker of the House, and the House was heavily Democrat. It was a Democrat House. The bill was not an in-state tuition bill for illegal aliens. The bill was the total college bill, the total higher education bill. 3 people voted against it because it would have shut off all money for all colleges and universities. Since that day, I have filed every single session to do away with in-state tuition for illegal aliens. During the presidential race, you heard what the governor said. When he was running for president, he said anyone who doesn't have the heart to give in-state tuition to illegal aliens just doesn't have the heart. That's too bad. They are illegally getting in-state tuition to the tune of $100 million a year. That's including the loans that they get.
And Matt, to follow up?
I would have been the 4th vote. I guess it's
Very well. Matt, this question comes to you first, which is a nice segue from talking about the providing of benefits. With respect to those that receive unemployment, welfare, food, housing benefits that are funded by the state, what obligations do those recipients have? And when I say obligations, I would offer examples, but not limited to random or mandatory drug testing, mandatory job training. What is incumbent upon someone who is receiving benefits, in your opinion? And how would you implement that opinion if you were elected?
Well, the easy answer is to say that we should have drug testing for those who are on public assistance. I recognize that that would create costs in and of itself. But I actually think that if someone really wanted benefits badly enough, that they could probably pay out of pocket for that drug test. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. There are other states that are doing that. I think we've got to look and see how it's working out there. And, you know, there's actually a model from Florida where it's amazing what people do when they can have their own money and the decisions they will make. Instead of putting people on unemployment insurance, they just gave them all the money, all of it. A smaller amount than the state would have had to spend to begin with. But what they found out was those people went out there and they used the money much more wisely. They actually went and got a job because they knew that was all the money they were going to get. And so they could watch it go down, down, down. I'm going to look for a job today. And it was a pretty good idea. What else they found? They found the amount of fraud was almost non-existent. Because people were using their own money, they knew how much they were going to spend, and it wasn't the state just saying, come back to us every month, come back to us every month. It's amazing what you do when you give people economic incentives to do what's in their own best interest. Get the state out of the way.
Leo?
Recently, the United States Congress went up to 99 weeks that a person can draw unemployment compensation. That's ridiculous in my mind. That is costing the federal government billions and billions of dollars. I'm not saying who I support for President of the United States, but I like what Newt Gingrich has to say about this. From the very first day a person starts drawing unemployment compensation, they should be made aware of training programs that they can go through immediately. And as soon as they complete the training program, they're assisted in getting a job in a new profession or new technology, and they're taken off the unemployment compensation rolls immediately. That's the way it should work.
To follow up, Matt? Okay. The next question comes to you first, Leo. Education funding has been an issue for, I think, since the Crimean War. Do you believe in the so-called Robin Hood arrangement that we have now? And if not, how else would you fund education in Texas?
I do not believe in a Robin Hood arrangement that we have now. In fact, we cut that dramatically. But here in Smith County, for example, we have 10 school districts. We have 10 superintendents. We have 10 staffs under all those superintendents. I would like to see us go back under the county superintendent form of government that we had over 40 years ago. We pay one superintendent $130,000, $150,000 a year and not 10. We would save millions of dollars here in Smith County if we went to a county superintendent type system.
Matt?
Well, we always want to look for more efficiency. You know, the Texas Constitution does not actually call for a fair public school system. It doesn't call for an equitable school system. It calls for an efficient, free public school system. We have to strive for efficiency. The problem you see right now is the school financing formula is so complex. Their estimates that there may only be 100 people in the entire state of Texas that understand. We have to bring some simplicity into it. There is great disparity even in this county. I've been spending some time with school superintendents. You can go down to Troop, and they're getting over $6,000 per student. You can go to Chapel Hill, and they're getting a little over $5,000 a student. You've got to find a way for there to be more equity in the per student funding for the schools. Now, if I had my brothers, we would get away from property taxes altogether. We would go to a broad-based consumption tax. We would avoid some of the instability in the property tax system. I know it's a complicated subject. There's a lot of different opinions there. But we need to get school financing right. We need to roll up our sleeves and make some tough choices. We've got to look for efficiency. But I'm not for forcing schools to consolidate. They are already looking at voluntary ways to do things. I know superintendents are talking about sharing bus maintenance charge and things like that. I think we need to local decision making. Bigger is not always better than a school district. And so I don't believe in a state mandated consolidation, but I think there's some consolidation of some services that it's already being talked about.
Leo, follow up.
Well, just follow up very quickly. Under the plan that I talked about, there would be one superintendent. Every school district would remain with the same name. There would be an assistant superintendent for each school district currently existing, reporting directly to that superintendent. There are too many higher-ups, not enough teachers. That's the problem that we have with our school districts. We want 60% of tax dollars to go into the classroom and no less than 60%. Instead, they're going to the superintendent and his staff.
And Matt, to follow up. Very well. This next question will come first to you. We're hearing about, and it is being discussed in the presidential debates, at the federal level, employees enjoy greater security, higher wages, and really very notably in these times, better benefits than the citizens that they work for. To what extent do you believe that that prevails in the state of Texas, and how would you address it?
There's new research out of the Texas Public Policy Foundation that goes to this very issue. You can go back to 2007, and you can watch where the state government spending relative to private gross domestic product has gone up and up and up. What that means in simple terms is that the burden that state spending has been placing on the private economy in Texas since 2007 has been going up dramatically. It went up dramatically in 2009. So you can't just focus on, well, how much money did the legislature spend? You have to focus on what is the burden government is placing on the private sector relative to how much the government is taking out. And so what we have to stop and do is say, we need to reduce some of these programs that the state is involved in. Folks, if it's not part of the constitutional proper role of state government, we need to stop doing it. We're in difficult financial times. The federal government just came out and said unemployment is headed back up in this country. We need government to play a smaller role and let the private sector play a larger role. We need to remember that we don't have safe streets and good schools because we have a good economy. We do have it because we have a good economy, not the other way around. And so we have to remember in government that it's the private sector that's pulling the wagon. We'd like for a few more people to get out of the wagon to help us pull.
Leo?
I vote against every increase in the size of the Texas government. But let me say one thing on behalf of the state of Texas. We are the #1 state in the United States. We have the best climate for business in the United States. Businesses are attracted. People are coming here at the rate of 1,000 a day, moving to Texas for jobs. Our unemployment rate is less than the total unemployment rate throughout the United States. Texas is something that I'm proud of. I'm proud to live in Texas. People come to us to ask for advice on how you do it. They go to the government and ask them, how do you do it? How do you balance your budget when you have a $25 billion shortfall? So I'm proud of our state, and we are doing a good job in Texas.
Follow up, Matt?
With all due respect, sir, you've said this before, and I'll call attention to it again. You cannot say that you have not voted to expand government. In 2003, you voted to create a brand new state agency that never existed before to regulate the entire building industry. Now, you can argue about the merits of whether or not they did it or not, but you cannot say that you did not vote to expand government.
And Leo?
Yes, we were asked to create this industry by homeowners. There was no place for a homeowner to go if there was something wrong with the home that was built for them by a Texas builder. This board that we created actually goes through a case and they rule either for the homeowner or for the builder. This is something that builders wanted. It's something that homeowners wanted. I think it passed unanimously. It was an easy call.
Very well. This will be the last question that I ask from the podium as we get toward the end of our evening. After this question, we will move into the segment where each candidate will be allowed to ask the other one 2 questions, and we will alternate back and forth. My final question, and Leo, it comes to you first. You are an incumbent, so you will be returning to office if you're elected. Matt, you are a challenger. You'll be taking office for the first time. The question that I have for both of you, and Leo, I start with you. What is the #1 thing on your agenda subsequent to inauguration after this election for the state of Texas?
The only thing in the Texas State Constitution that we have to do is balance the budget and go home. That's all we have to do. I want to make sure that our budget is balanced properly, and the size of government is limited. That's the #1 thing that I want to do. But I will also file at least 12 bills, making English the official language of Texas, making it a fact in Texas that just because a child is born here, he is not automatically a U.S. citizen. I've got 12 bills ready to go to file next session dealing with illegal aliens. I am the leader on the floor on all legislation dealing with illegal aliens in Texas.
Matt, for you, the #1 issue that you would address upon taking office.
First thing I'm going to do is make sure that the schools of Smith County have a voice in every conversation about education. I want to make sure the hospitals have a conversation, seat at the table at every conversation about health care, because we have problems dealing with health care and education that have been left over from the previous legislature. We've got to focus on what's going on right here in Smith County. I will be represented to be your voice, to be the guy that's focusing on the legislative priorities that represent individual freedom and the issues that are important to people right here in these cities.
Leo, any follow-up?
Every voice that was mentioned by my opponent has a voice in Austin. In fact, we do work on the floor of the House of Representatives no matter what time we finish, it could be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we still have to go into committee hearings. And everybody who's here to testify will testify. Schools come down, builders come down. Anyone in Texas that wants a voice before the Texas legislature has that voice. Then there's no one that's shut out.
Okay, Matt, finally follow up on that question. Okay, this will move now into the segment where the candidates will address directly to one another 2 questions, and we will alternate. We'll start with you, Matt, asking Representative Berman the first question that you have, and Leo, you will have, as we've had, 2 minutes to answer him, and then back and forth as we've been going. So Matt, the floor is yours.
Representative Berman, we've all gotten to know our friend to our east, Representative David Simpson. During the last bill, and during the last legislative session, he had an opportunity to place an amendment onto House Bill 1, which would have transferred $2.5 million from the Arts Commission to the Texas Department of Aging and Disability Services to take money away from the arts and give it to nursing homes at a time when nursing homes are facing cuts, when school teachers are being laid off. And one of the reasons opponents didn't want him to do that is it was going to bring in more federal money for the arts, which I believe is an unconstitutional aspect of the federal government. But when Representative Simpson asked that...
Let me rein you just a little bit. There's got to be a question in there somewhere.
I'll get right to it. Why did you vote against that bill?
I voted against the bill because we had already cut 75% out of the Arts Commission budget. And they do so much work with our public schools here in Smith County, and they do so much work with the symphony that my wife is very active with, that leaving them $2.5 million to work with was a pittance. It was a drop in the bucket. We didn't have to kill them completely. The Arts Commission has value. They have value in Texas. And after cutting 75% out of their budget, they could hardly do anything. And if you're a teacher, you know exactly what I mean. The Arts Commission works with schools to give kids music lessons. They give kids drawing lessons. They take them on field trips. And it's very important that we just let them keep $2.5 million. That's why I voted against the bill.
All right, now, Matt, let her roll.
I think we all value the arts, but I think when you're in an unprecedented budget crunch, you have to look at what is the proper role of government. Is it to fund the arts out of Austin? It's not. It's really not. And we're asking our legislators to make hard decisions. Nursing home, as the bill would have done from Representative Simpson, or the Arts Commission. I would have gone with the nursing home. I think we have to set priorities and not just play favorites with certain industries.
Yes, Leo, follow up.
We put other money into nursing homes and we're doing well.
Very well. Leo, the next question is yours.
Matt, I haven't heard exactly how you feel about tort. Would you have voted for the tort reform bill? I know there's a lot of trial lawyers, and you're in general practice, and you'll probably have a lot of cases along those lines. Are you ready to go more on tort reform in Texas?
There have been a number of tort reform bills, and the body of bills that I've looked at, I would have supported. In fact, in 2009, your colleague Carl Ice called me from my small town practice to come down and work with him on the Texas Department of Insurance bill. Because the trial lawyers were trying to tack all these amendments onto the insurance bill, which were going to be favorable to plaintiffs' attorneys. I was the lead man for that. I actually spent hours in the offices of Texans for lawsuit reform. They know me by name now. And I have supported tort reform. I think it's reasonable. Attorneys can still make a good living. People still have access to the courts.
Leo, follow up.
Trial lawyers and Tyler want to see me gone. They don't like it. They want to see me gone so that tort reform has some chance of being defeated. as long as people like me are in the legislature, we're going to continue with tort reform, which is the most significant piece of legislation we passed in the last 2 years, which attracts business and over 5,000 new doctors to Texas.
And that's a follow-up.
It's interesting that Texans for Lawsuit Reform, who has accomplished a lot of reform in Texas, when they want to get their work done, they hire conservative lawyers to help them get it done. I'm going to be one of those conservative lawyers who stands for sound business practices and acknowledges access to the courts. So we've made progress on that front, and I will defend it.
Matt, your second question to Leo.
Representative Berman, when you first went in, you had 2 points that you ran against Ted Campbell: term limits and not participating in the House retirement program. You told the Tyler Morning Telegraph on March 1st, 1998, "I've got integrity. I believe in citizen legislators as opposed to career legislators." And you said also, you said that you would not participate in the Texas retirement program, that your integrity means more to you than the House retirement program. Have the voters released you from that pledge?
There are times when circumstances change. Concerning the retirement system, I made that pledge. I meant to keep that pledge. My wife died of cancer. I remarried. My new wife, Luann, who I love dearly, had no Social Security. I had to cover her. I had to protect her. And my duty at that time was to my wife. Concerning term limits, when I came up, when I finished my 4th term, I was going to get out of the legislature. Both the governor and the Speaker of the House asked me to remain in the legislature, ask your constituents, and we sent out a general mailing to ask my constituents, and 70% told me to stay in the legislature. The governor did television spots right here in Tyler. The Speaker of the House did television spots right here in Tyler. Both of them said, "Don't blame Leo. We asked him to have continuity with other senior Republicans, and we asked him to remain in the House." When 70% came back and said yes, I ran for re-election. And I've been re-elected since that time.
Matt, to follow up.
In fact, you did send out a mailer in 2006 when you ran against Custer Harrison. It said, "Why did Leo Berman ask voters to release him from the term pledge?" And so the answer you gave the public was because of Tom Craddock and Rick Perry.
That's correct.
But the truth is, 4 years prior to that, in 2002, you wrote to the Tyler Morning Telegraph and said, "I have concluded if a legislative body is organized based on seniority like the Texas State Legislature, term limits will not work. Term limits sound good until you run into reality." So you told the newspaper that you changed your mind 4 years prior. But then later in 2006, you told the public, "No, it's because the governor and the speaker asked me." So which was it?
The governor and speaker asked me to. I've got television spots to prove that. But let me say this. A Texas legislature makes $600 a month. That's what we get paid. I'm a full-time legislature. He's going to have to work to make a living. I'm in the office every day from 8 to 5. If you need me, you can get me anytime between those hours. And at night, because I'm in the phone book, I publicly broadcast my telephone number to everybody. And I'm proud of that.
Very well. Leo, the last question of the evening is yours to Matt Schaefer.
Matt, I'm just going to say, I think it took a lot of, there's a Jewish word called chutzpah, a lot of brain power to do this. And I want to congratulate you for the chutzpah you had. Go ahead and file it. it's a long-term commitment. I have no question.
Okay, to conclude the evening, we will allow each of the candidates to give a 2-minute closing statement. And we agreed before we got started that the person who went first would go last. So that would mean that, Matt, the floor is yours for a 2-minute closing statement.
I think that most of you that showed up here tonight already had your mind made up before you got here. I see a few chuckles on your faces. So let me just say this. This is an important election. And I'm not going to get anything done by myself. And so if it is in your prerogative to support me, then I need your help. Because I can't do this by myself. Get involved. Be involved in my campaign. Tell somebody about it. You know, it is great that we're here today. And I do have a tremendous amount of respect in my heart for Representative Berman. It's not my intention to get into this race in the beginning and against it. We have different turn of events. I think you all know that. But we're running a spirited campaign. We will continue to do so. But I ask for your help. I need you to get involved. And I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
This is where I get to be Bill O'Reilly and say, Leo, I'll give you the last one.
Thank you, Bill. Tonight I want to come before you and tell you that I'm in my 44th year of public service. I served 22 years in the United States Army. 2 of those years were in combat in Vietnam. That's why I'm wearing a hat tonight. I have no hair. Agent Orange finally caught up with me. And I've got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is not only treatable, but it's also curable. On Monday, I'll get a chemotherapy treatment. I'll be halfway through, and in 3 more months, I'll be healed, hopefully, with the Lord at my side. And with God as your co-pilot, you can't go wrong. With Jesus as your co-pilot, you can't go wrong. But I served 2 years in the State Guard. I was promoted by the governor to full colonel. In the State Guard, I served 6 years as a city council member. And I'm in my 14th year as a member of the Texas House of Representatives. A freshman legislator can do absolutely nothing. You learn the rules during your freshman year. It takes at least your sophomore and further to learn how to pass a bill. It's not easy. It's very difficult. Thank you all for being here tonight. God bless you.
Leo and Matt, thank you very much. We've had a Republican debate involving Texas, and nobody forgot the name of a major government department. That's a giant step forward in Texas political debate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Jason and David, thank you for having me, and thank you for coming out. God bless the USA. Thank you.